This is going to be a three-part video, not three separate videos, but I'm talking about three different things within one video, and it's going to bring it all together. The majority of this, I'm just talking about Black land ownership for the most part. And the first part of this is called, we can't even struggle in peace. All right. The second is my personal struggle to sell a property in historically black owned areas or black owned land, and the fact that coincidentally pretty much everything that we own has been in a historically black owned area. All right. And the third is, of course, the loss of black land as a whole. So first, we can't even struggle in peace, right? So that's something that's been on my mind for a very long time. It's like everybody always wants to grab on to our struggle and say, oh, me too. It's like we get gaslit every way we turn, like, oh, me too. You don't deserve that because of this and because of that. And so our pain is always less, or should be less, than anybody else's because we've been given this and we've been given that. But again, we can't even struggle in peace. You had the civil rights movement, of which other people benefited from. You had different housing programs, of which were supposed to be created for us, but other people benefited from. You have affirmative action, of course, which was supposed to be created for us, of which another group of people benefited from statistically way more than we did. So when I say we can't even struggle in peace, that's what I mean. I mean that there's always another group of people that try to tag on or tag along with our struggle or anything that we've gained to help us progress as a people, just so that we just can't have anything to ourselves, and just in the name of our people, of black people, of members of the ADOS. Okay, that's what I'm specifically talking about. Black people here in America that are descendants of slaves. That's what I'm talking about. So as far as us not being able to struggle in peace, we all know that land ownership is wealth. Land ownership is wealth in this country. Every company, every business, every entity, every home is on land. So land is where the value is. All right, land is your wealth. Going back to the fact that we can't even struggle in peace, the land that was once deemed undesirable, okay, is now quote unquote prime real estate. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. You had slaves that went out and that found their homes in secluded places, in marshes and marshland and on the beaches, different places where other people found undesirable because of the gnats, the bugs, the alligators, all the animals, or whatever the case may be. All right. Now the tables have turned, and all of the land that, we made home is now become desirable or waterfront property. And so now that's even being taken over. It's just really sad that we can't even struggle in peace. And another area is the urban areas. All right. So you had people moving out to the suburbs, and they didn't want to be in the urban areas or the cities anymore. So you had cities that became a majority black, right? So now you have gentrification, all right? And you have the areas where we populated being taken over once again. So it's like wherever we go, I don't know if it's because we make it desirable, or it's just the fact that we can't even struggle in peace, like I said, and have anything to ourselves to, as our own. And gentrification is not necessarily a bad thing if you're talking about the actual definition of it. Gentrification is bad because it's happening in our communities, in our neighborhoods, but we're not gentrifying it. That's the problem. All right. So part two is my personal struggle, like I said, to sell historically black owned property. And I found something very interesting, and I didn't even know that that I had been doing this is, but I have a really fond desire to buy and purchase and own land and property in historically Black owned areas. And I didn't even realize that I had been doing this subconsciously, because, you know, everything that we own is in a historically owned, you know, or previously owned by a Black person or Black people, or you know, in Black communities. The struggle that I was having lately was I wanted to sell one of the properties. I was thinking about selling one of the properties because I'm going to be coming out of my full-time job after I have our baby. My struggle, I had four major struggles with this. All right, so the first one was, I knew it was formerly owned by a Black person, or it was in a Black neighborhood, so I felt morally obligated to hold on to it. All right. My second issue with selling property that was, you know, that's in a Black owned or historically Black area was the fact that I didn't want anybody else other than us to get their hands on it. So that's why I didn't want to sell it. And C, I felt obligated to my tenants because I knew that if anyone else other than us, you know, I guess not necessarily, but, you know, I didn't want anyone else to get a hold of it and their rent go sky high, because that's usually what's going to happen. And the fourth reason I didn't want to sell it is because I can see that the values are starting to increase because of gentrification. So those were the four reasons that were on my mind, that, you know, I kept going back and forth with about selling the property, but we decided not to sell it. We decided to hold on to it. All right. So that's the second part. So remember, the first was, we can't even struggle in peace when it comes to Black land ownership. The second one was my personal struggle with selling property that was in historically Black, you know, neighborhoods or areas. And the third one is this, is all the stolen land and everything. And I'm going to show you some videos about what I'm talking about. So right after emancipation and Reconstruction, we owned tons and tons of land because Black people saw the value in land and they knew what they were up against. They knew that that land was their key and their ticket to wealth. So it's no accident that after Reconstruction and emancipation, we owned so much land. All right. And now we own 90% less land. We own 90% less land today than we did right after our emancipation and our Reconstruction. And that is not by accident. There are several reasons why that is. You had discrimination, systemic discrimination, tons and tons of it done on purpose to steal and take our land. You had the Great Migration. So you have people moving from the South, from all of the land that they owned, up north and leaving it behind for whatever reason, whether it was forcefully taken by violence, or you had people just leaving it behind. You had children that didn't want the land anymore. You had like heirs property that was just left behind, and people never pay the taxes. They don't care about it. They don't want it. They don't want to be in the South. They don't want to have anything to do with the South. And you have the fact that our land was purposely devalued. Okay, and our land, just like they do in urban areas, is purposely devalued so that they can say, oh, this is not worth anything. They go up and they buy it for a much cheaper price, and then they start to gentrify and turn the area around once they've gotten us out of there and devalued our property and devalued our land. All right. And again, another reason for a lot of the mass Black land loss is, you know, unpaid taxes, like I said, and just flat out theft. There have been, you know, times where, you know, people just go in the courts and they just say, oh, this is mine, I'm claiming this back, or whatever the case may be. You have people and heirs that don't claim the land and don't have proper paperwork. That's why it's important for us to have proper paperwork, wills and trust and things like that, to make sure our land stays in our family and no one can mess with it or take it from our family, that it just continues on. And you know, there are a lot of reasons why there was so much Black land loss, and it's disgusting. And if you watch any of my other videos, you know that I am a descendant of Gullah Geechee people from the Gullah Geechee area. I still own land that was passed down to me from my father in Gullah Geechee land. All right. And I have no desire to sell it. And it's because of some of the reasons I've already talked about in this video. The land is being gentrified, is being taken over. The values of it is just blown up astronomically over the past few years, especially since this emic that we've had the past few years. Like the property values is just crazy. All right, and I'm just going to show you some videos about Hilton Head Island and some of these other areas in the country where people have been taken advantage of, their land stolen, and they've just been railroaded, and it's disgusting, you know. And in Hilton Head Island, it used to be a predominantly black owned island. Like almost the whole island was black, like over 95% black. Now is over 90% white, and it's deemed and considered, you know, prime property or waterfront property, you know. So again, we can't even struggle in peace. Eventually they're going to find something desirable about it and try to take it over, and eventually they will take it over. And it's really sad and unfortunate, because when that happens, the people there, the natives there, aren't able to afford the taxes, and they're moved out either forcefully, they're moved out legally, they're moved out because nobody claims the land. Once the land is paying the taxes, nobody can pay the taxes or afford to pay the taxes. And it's just always a reason why, you know, one of the main, if not the main source of wealth is always taken away from us.
A closer look at a viral TikTok video with claims of stolen land, racism, and legal wrongdoing. The story is unfolding in College Station, where Brazos resident John Simmons is living.
6 News reporter Sarah Wilson tracks down those he accuses and explains how a simple document could have avoided a legal mess. But now what's happening?
But right now, the developer in this area, Trent Thomas, Roundtree Development, and their lawyers, is trying to take my land.
Fabi Payton took this video of 81-year-old John Simmons. Payton considers herself a community activist in Bryan College Station. She posted the viral video on Facebook, which became the start to unraveling family history. Now, Roundtree Development, the company Simmons accuses, bought up all of this land that you see behind me. See, Simmons' wife, Joyce, and her 6 siblings each inherited a plot of land before their parents, Will and Pinckney Brown, died. John Simmons thought his wife left something to him before she died.
There were 7 children. All of them got their part. Somebody done messed up. Because our land was clear. And my wife deeded everything to me. So why wasn't I known about it?
Experts tell 6 News this whole ordeal could have been avoided with one legal document, a living will.
Everyone at the age of 18 needs to be able to give some thought to the notion that we're human, and because we're human.
And see, this is another issue, and this is how they got us, because they always change these laws in favor of them to get what it is that they want. They've done this all throughout our history here on this soil. But they're going to say that a simple document could have saved, you know, this man from doing that, but from going through this situation. But the issue is also, you have to remember that a lot of these people didn't even have the notion that they needed these documents, that these documents existed, that these were things that they needed in order to be able to pass down their land, you know, because these people have been there. You don't think that if you've owned something so long, you've paid taxes on it, your family has been there for generations, that you need to have a piece of paper or a document to prove this and that. But that's how it is in America, and that's how they get you with all this paperwork and legalities. And sometimes, like I said, they change it to suit whatever benefits them at the time. But they know these people was on this land. They know that this is heirs property, and it is blatantly ignored most of the time.
We might not always be able to make decisions for ourselves while we're alive.
John's wife, Joyce Simmons died in 2021 without a will. John attempted to give the land he thought he owned to his great-nephew, Randall Brown. It was years ago when Simmons learned Roundtree Development had already purchased the land from the Brown family.
Once we cleared up that title, that cleared up all the Brown property on both sides,
including the portion left to Simmons' wife, Joyce. Texas's intestate estate law says if both parents die, the property goes to their children or their descendants, which doesn't necessarily mean spouses.
He's known. He said, "You don't own mine." I said, "I hate to tell you, I do." That was 4 years ago. All I did was what was right now, and we've done it with the utmost of integrity and with the law. I told you we owned your property. I can't help what wasn't done right before me.
Brazos County records show no will or deed was left by Joyce, though probate records show Simmons paid taxes on the land, but Texas law says that doesn't mean he owns it. We asked Simmons for any documentation that would show he holds any ownership of the property, but he did not provide any. Payton's video of Simmons speak on his behalf. Now Thomas and his family are facing threats of violence.
But to be lied on, to be threatened, at this point, my whole family has been damaged. And so that's what we're seeking. We could care less about the land at this point, because we did not steal anyone's land. My whole life has been dedicated to expose that historical injustice.
We attempted to reach Payton several times, but our messages and emails have gone unanswered.
Please leave your message for...
Despite the ugliness, Thomas says he doesn't have anger towards Simmons. He's free to stay on the land, yet planning to take legal action against Payton and those making threats.
I forgive Mr. Simmons, but I think everybody that is liable in this defaming, slanderous farce of a show that has been put on needs to pay. Some criminal and some civil.
Sarah Wilson, 6 News.
Well, I understand what the developer and the purchaser of this property is saying. However, you cannot change someone's deep-rooted feelings about land that they have lived on for generations, land that they thought they could leave on to their heirs. And it's just disgusting, because a lot of these older people, they have no clue and no understanding of what is even going on legally. This man found out after his land was sold that it was sold. You know, and it's just disgusting. It just keeps happening over and over and over, and it's still happening in 2023.
Our Low Country report, a 93-year-old Hilton Head woman whose family has ties to the Civil War generation says developers are trying to force her to sell her land, starting with what she calls a frivolous lawsuit. As WSAV's Andrew Davis tells us, now the community is backing her fight.
This porch has been part of Josephine Wright's family and her home for more than 30 years. But developers now say it's part of their property, even though it's 22 feet from the road that they're building on. And they filed a lawsuit to try to take it from her.
I've been pretty much of a fighter all my life.
And even at 93, this grandmother to 40, great-grandmother to 50, and great-great-grandmother to 16 more says she's ready to fight for her family's past and future.
It puzzled me at first, but then it got me angry.
Angry at the lawsuit filed against her by Bailey Point Investment. They're the group who are developing the land right behind her home on Jonesville Road, property that has belonged to her family since the Civil War. The 147-unit plan has been approved and is well on its way, but Bailey Point says Wright is blocking their progress. They filed a lawsuit saying parts of her home are on their property, and they have the paperwork to prove it. In fact, they're asking for damages. Wright already paid to move a shed and a satellite dish, but the developers say her porch is still on land they own.
See, I'm at least, 12 feet away from the borderline, which is right there.
Actually, neighbors helping her say it's 22 feet away from the road that Bailey Point built. Josephine says this isn't about a porch. The developers made offers to buy her land, and she claims when she turned them down, they started harassing her.
And I don't want to say anything that can be used against me, but I think they're unscrupulous and greedy. And they want nothing but all the property they can get their hands on.
Kelly LeBlanc is part of the newly formed Jonesville Preservation Society. She and her fellow neighbors, many of whom are related and original islanders, have garnered support from Hilton Head residents and town leaders. all to make sure the island's past here and everywhere will be protected in the future.
We can't change the zoning. The town is looking very carefully at all of the approvals that they're going through. So the town is really working with us in terms of like it's got to be to the letter of the law.
In the meantime, Wright has a lawyer of her own now and is ready to fight for her property and her history. And what do you want?
I want to just keep my property and let them leave me alone.
So again, like I said, this is Gullah Geechee land. If you're familiar with Hilton Head Island, Kyrie Irvin also donated to help this grandmother and this elder, preserve and keep her property. And again, this is another disgusting example of these developers and people coming into Black-owned land and property, historically owned, Black-owned land and property, and trying to just completely take it over. They have no care in the world of the history of the people, of the culture that's being erased there. All they see is exactly what it is that they want. Again, this whole video was in essence just to bring awareness to the mass loss of Black land and ownership. And it's to urge you, if you have any property in your family, make sure that you have your documents in order. Make sure that grandma and grandpa have a will, they have a trust, that everybody knows who is supposed to get what, and get your ducks in order so that we don't continue to lose wealth, to lose our homes, to lose our history, to lose our culture. All right, we have to get our ducks in order, and we have to play by their game, unfortunately, and we have to, play by the rules to keep and sustain ourselves here. All right, so, talk to grandma, talk to your parents, make sure that everything is in order. If they're leaving things behind, try to stay aware of the laws and what's going on in your communities. If you have your hands already on grandma's house or daddy and mama's house, try to hold on to it. Take care of it. If you can, find any way and means to keep up the upkeep, to update it, to take care of it, and just hold on to it. Keep it in the family. Even if you don't want to live in it or live in that area, rent it out. There are other means that are things you can do just to be able to keep your hands on wealth, which is land ownership. So I want to thank you all for watching. I'm going to show you one more video about Hilton Head and the fact that, like I said, they do not care. They just want what they want. They'll even build over grave sites. And this shouldn't be anything new because they've done it to the Native Americans, building over land and over graves and over spiritual sites and historically, highly esteemed areas and sites. They really don't care. So we have to care. We have to get back to truly desiring and understanding where value is. It is not in all of these designer labels and these things that they say we should care about. It's about, the earth, about nature, about land, about where we're going to live, what type of value and, quality of life that we're going to have. All right.
Is one of the top vacation destinations in the U.S. But long before this, it was a refuge for formerly enslaved people brought here in bondage from West and Central Africa.
This is what you do. This is how you eat. This is how you survive.
Their traditions, customs, and histories blended to form a distinct group of people called the Gullah Geechee. This community, formed mostly in isolation on islands along the southern U.S. coast, has been under relentless siege by the threat of commercial development and land acquisition.
They built the bridge because they wanted progress, but they didn't really take and invest in the culture and what we had.
In Hilton Head, folks we spoke with said the town is putting the needs of tourists over the community.
This is what they don't show you. They show you white sandy beaches.
And as multi-million-dollar housing developments continue to go up, Gullah people often can't afford to keep up with rising property taxes.
Sold 8,500, number 110.
And so, an island that used to be more than 95% Black is now close to 90% white.
With the Gullah culture, we buried our folks, close to the water, and the significance behind that was to give the souls passage back to the motherland, back to Africa, back home. But when you find a golf course in between the water and where the cemetery is, even in the grave, it's still a challenge.
And this is the disrespect that I'm talking about. They put a golf course in between. There's a African American grave site right here close to these homes. And you better believe me, if there's a grave site this close to these homes and these structures, they most definitely built over some of them.
And this is the level of disrespect. Braddock's Point Cemetery, African American. Spray paint out. They can care less about what they have done to us.
Don't know is that Black people lived on the island long before the ferry and the bridge brought outsiders. Gullah people purchased property from state tax auctions after plantation owners abandoned the island during the Civil War. On Hilton Head, they formed the first self-governed town of formerly enslaved people in the country. It was called Mitchellville. For Gullah people, their ability to own land is their history. The bridge was built to make it accessible to the mainland. The island would transform into a resort-based economy that excluded the Gullah people. That bridge, which has already been widened over the years, is now set for even further expansion onto the Stewart family's land.
They can go anywhere they want to. They do not have to mess with 278 anymore. They done took them people's land long enough. We won't have anything. So they gonna put us, where they gonna put us?
In 1949, about 3,200 acres were owned by the Gullah Geechee on Hilton Head. Today, around 1,000 acres remain in the hands of their families. Meanwhile, traditional livelihoods like farming and fishing that sustained Gullah people for hundreds of years have also suffered. The highest bidders are here today to see if they can buy themselves a bit of this prime real estate at the county tax auction. Gullah people have been losing their land over just a few $100s in unpaid taxes. But there's an informal tradition where if they stand up and say heirs property,
Heirs property here.
people won't bid on their land.
So we're actually going to go to a closed door meeting right now. The treasurer is going to answer any questions for folks who are involved with heirs property and give them an opportunity to find out what their rights are during the tax auction.
A lot of you here today may want to stand up and say heirs property when the property becomes available, comes up to bid. And I want to make sure that you are all aware that this is a tradition here. It's not a law, it's not a policy. I cannot enforce that tradition, but I do want that tradition to remain here because it's important for all of you.
7,500.
This year, several bidders did not step aside and abide by that tradition.
Heirs property.
Number, let's see, how about 1,500, ma'am? 1,500, now 16. How about 16? Anybody 16? 16, 17, 17, anybody 17? Sold it. 1,600, number 18. How about Benjamin Simmons here, 2,000? Okay. 1,700, ma'am. Now 18, 1,900. 18, 19, 2000, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 3.
So, like the young lady said, she said it's a tradition to speak up and say, "Oh, this is heirs property," but it's not legal. They don't have to abide by it. The buyers cannot give a damn. They can still bid on it and purchase it. No, again, these people are just doing whatever they can with what they have to maintain, what's been in their family for generations.
1,000, all in 9,000. Sold 8,500, number 110. 8,500, number 110.
Priscilla.
And so this elder right here, she can't afford that. The young lady went all the way up to 8,000. Her bid was, I think, $1,500. And these people are being priced way out of this land. This what has become prime property. They're just being priced out.
Came to the auction today hoping to reclaim their land through the heirs property tradition, but both were outbid.
Sorry it didn't work out the way you expected.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you shared.
So what do we do now?
Residents have exactly 1 year and a day after the tax sale to redeem their property by paying back taxes they owe with fees and interest.
How did it make you feel that you got outbid on your own property?
Very bad. Very bad. Sad. Sad. That someone, knowing that it's heir's property, would try to take it away.
You were, bidding on your home.
It's just, please, can we have it? Can my children enjoy the land, without having to worry about it? Pass it on. Let it keep going like it was with these hundreds of years.
While the threats of land displacement are impacting folks throughout the Gullah Geechee corridor, back in Hilton Head, many folks believe the problem is so pervasive because it's baked into the system.
We're in Shelter Cove here, Shelter Cove Harbor. This is what they want people to see, this side of Hilton Head. Not the reality of how Native Islanders are living, this. What they're not seeing is the dirt roads, the backed up sewer lines, the lack of infrastructure, the drainage systems, the ditches, all of that is the reality.
The town was developed as a series of private communities that provided services like water, sewage, and trash to the mostly white residents inside them. And the rest of the island, which was largely black, became dependent on the town for only minimal services.
Why is the Gullah community still living like this? Why am I driving down the road and there's no landscape medians in the Gullah community? These are the questions that someone needs to be held responsible and accountable for. Someone needs to answer.
We went looking for answers, and this is who Hilton had referred us to. Charisse Du Bois is the liaison between the town and the Gullah Geechee Task Force, which
And of course, they would make the liaison an African American. All right, so they know exactly what they're doing.
residents say isn't really meeting their needs or resolving problems fast enough.
What is the town doing to gain the Gullah community's trust?
We are, trust in the Gullah community is very difficult. If you're able to get in or be trusted by them, then you need to consider yourself lucky.
Why do you think that is?
Because Gullah people have lived in isolation so long, historically. They came to these islands, they established a culture, they're very close-knit, they're family-oriented, and when you're not from any of the areas, you're not connected with the family, it's hard to connect with it. And that takes a process. That's not something you can barge in and just do.
Not only do folks here say the town has failed to live up to its responsibilities, but it's also the town itself that's buying up property. Hilton Head is the largest owner of formerly Gullah-owned land in the Stewart family's neighborhood.
It's not a good feeling to know that someone or people are after what you have. When they have so much and you have so little, but they still want to take yours.
And so families like the Stewarts find strength in the bonds of their community, their faith in God, and their history of overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds.
Let the developers come in. If you let one come in, more come in. And when even if you willingly sell your land, some of your land, they're coming back to get the rest. Know where you're going. Know the history of where you're going. Know how the people got the...
So again, she's talking about the developers, and this was the dilemma that I had with selling property in historically Black-owned areas and historically Black-owned land. And even my husband owns property in the Caribbean, and it's difficult because no matter where, it doesn't matter where we go, we can't even struggle in peace. No matter where we go, it will be deemed prime property wherever it is in the world. It doesn't matter. eventually someone's gonna come see the beauty in it and want to take it from us. So that was the whole gist of this video. I'm just a little angry and disheartened because of the situation and how much wealth and land that we've lost over the years. And I want us to get back to actually understanding and knowing what is important and what is valuable. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for listening. Tell me your experiences in land loss and history in your family, about land and wealth being lost and regained or even held on to. I want to know. I want to hear these stories. And thank you all and be blessed.